Get higher, baby. Get higher, baby. Get higher, girl. Hey.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pageless Library. Hopefully, welcome back. If this is your first episode, I am Bo Knight, and with me, as always, is Ryan Knight, and we are a podcast that reviews audiobooks. And today, we are talking about the classic Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, I would call it a classic.
I mean, we'll get it. Plugs real quick, Ryan.
Yeah, sure. So we're still waiting on our first email or hate mail.
How?
I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
understand.
I don't really understand
How much
either.
more do I need to scream at our 4 listeners?
Yeah, even if they just want to drop us an email and say, "What's up?" That'd be fine. Like,
Yeah, anything. It could be blank, and I would still lose my mind.
But if you would like to be that first email, you could email us at kotpl.pod@gmail.com. You could tweet at us at Pageless Library. You could go over to the YouTube channel, drop a comment on one of the, if you listen to it over here on SoundCloud or iTunes or wherever you listen to it, and you don't want to get us hold of us through any of this stuff or email us, then go over to YouTube, drop a comment on one you like, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff over there. You could drop us a Facebook message, Knights of the Pageless Library. YouTube is Knights of the Pageless Library, if I didn't say that, by the way.
I don't I don't think you said, actually.
I don't think I did either. I got too caught up in talking. And then you could check us out on Reddit, r/KOTPL. And we recently put up a Discord chat room. So if you wanted to be invited to the Discord, just send us an email.
You have to have a library card, though.
That's right. You have to get your library card before you can enter the Pageless Library. So drop us an email and I will send you a link to let you into the Discord channel. So, and with that, we can get into this one.
So, as always, pretty much we listen to it on Audible. I mean, is there anywhere else to listen to books if you're not a freaking thieving pirate? No,
that's right.
There isn't.
And we are knights. We are not pirates.
Yeah, honor bound.
And also, as with everything we review, so like Bo said, we listen to this on Audible, and so if you listen to this somewhere else, if you listen to just some random dude reading it on YouTube, your mileage is going to vary. We can't help you with that. This is strictly our review of the Audible version.
And so, Lord of the Flies is old. It's pretty old.
Yeah, it's really old, like the 50s.
Yeah, 1954.
The book is in 54, and I want to say the audio was even done in like 1970 something.
Well, because it's actually read by William Golding, which is the guy that wrote it.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to say,
can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, if you think this is the appropriate time, let's do it.
I don't think that was a good choice.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
See, I actually kind of liked it. Without going too far beyond, we'll talk about this, I think, a little bit more. I actually thought he did pretty good for being someone with I'm assuming zero narration experience, and he just wanted to narrate his own book. I do
really respect that. But, like, have you ever listened to something that's narrated by Stephen King? It's just... there's a reason freaking narrators exist.
Right. And you're right. And that's part of what we want to discuss here, on this podcast, is that narrators can easily obviously make or break a story, because that's the whole point of listening to a book. And I agree with you, but I think that I actually thought he did okay. And I think it just, to me, I agree with you, because I think somebody who could have put a little more inflection in it would have made it more interesting. But it
was just hard to tell who was talking.
Sure, absolutely, because he didn't change his voice. So, to me, what I did in this one is, when I was listening to it, I literally thought of it as like being told the story by like your grandpa. That's
Okay.
that
All right.
that was
I
just
see that.
that's just how I settled into it. I was like, this is just like if you were sitting down and listening to a story that your grandpa was telling. Not that we had any grandpas that were active in our lives, but
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too.
because we didn't at all. Um, but that was how I felt about it, and I actually thought once I accepted that for what it was, and once I accepted that he was the author, he's not a trained narrator, I actually didn't have a huge problem with it.
And I'll get into a little bit more why I think it was a poor choice. So let's talk a little bit about the book, because then that we kind of have covered that. So so this is like what genre would you say this is? This is like, I don't.
Well, it's basically it's just a fiction thriller kind of. Kinda.
That's because I don't really agree with thriller.
Well, yeah. Maybe that's not the right word. I'm not really sure exactly.
Serve, like it's like a shipwreck story, I guess.
I think it's airplane crash, isn't it?
That's what I really didn't understand. Like, because there was like two things that happened. I thought because there's two separate groups of boys.
Yes, there is. That's a good point, and we need to talk about that a little more once we get into it because we'll talk about it when we get there. But that was kind of hard to follow, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, hang on. So super broad strokes here. This book is about like a group of boys that crash landed on an island somehow, and they have to learn to survive. But there's no adults.
Right. There is no adults because whether it was a ship, whether it was a plane, whatever, the adults on board died, and the boys, the young boys, and it's all boys, they all survived.
Right. And yeah, so and it's how long is it? It's about like 6 hours.
It's 6.5 hours. So yes, it was a plane crash because they were a group of schoolboys being evacuated from Britain, and they were actually shot down.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So
that makes a lot more sense.
So that's why the adults, I'm assuming it was probably just them and like a pilot or a pilot and a co-pilot, but that the adults all died and it's just young boys that are left. And we'll get into this once we pass the spoiler wall for anybody who does really want to listen to this.
Are you able to find a price? Because I am not.
No, mine just says get it for free.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting too. And it seems like if you search Lord of the Flies, because this is a really popular school book, there are tons of things that are like, what happened here? Blah, blah, blah. This is a breakdown of this part. This is this.
Yeah, so, and let's talk about that real quick because I found that weird. So when I searched this on Audible to download it on my phone, I was like, well, wait a minute. What are all these other things? Because there's you got to be careful because there's other stuff that says like summary and analysis of Lord of the Flies. So definitely don't get that because that's not what you're looking for. You want Lord of the Flies written and narrated by William Golding.
Yeah. If you want the one that we listen to.
Correct. Yeah.
If you want our recommendation on this personal experience, that's the one you want.
Yeah.
So easy to follow. I'm going to go with a big no.
I'm going to also go with a big no. And I think specifically for the almost overuse of details in the environment for me.
And I kind of want to get into this a little bit more from the spoilers, I think. But okay. I really agree with like what you said. Is like there's a lot of like needless detail.
Oh, for sure. Because I'd catch myself. He'd be like, the boys, looked up at the rock face and they realized they need to go up it. And so and-so leads the way by finding a rock and grabbing it with his hand. It was a firm hold on this rock that he got. And then he found it, and I was like, okay, so I start spacing out. And then I catch myself coming back in like 45 seconds later. And then he made his fourth step, grabbing another rock.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, dude, what are you serious right now? Like, okay, just tell me they needed to scale this rock face. If there's
Yeah.
something important to that, then add that. But otherwise, just say they scaled the rock face. Like, come on. We don't need that much detail on this one non-important aspect.
And I know this is kind of like an older style of book, but like I really didn't enjoy that part of it.
The like almost too much detail
Yeah.
for some. I agree. And there was some stuff that there wasn't enough detail, I felt
Right,
like.
right. And I was like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah. And I'm not saying he didn't do well, I had a hard time with this because I felt like he did a good job describing like their environment, but at the same time he was so descriptive, and yet every time he was like, and then the boys all decided they needed to head up to the castle. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like,
yeah.
you know, even though he was so descriptive, it was never painting a picture in my head of where they were.
Okay,
Like,
so let's get into recommendations, I think, a little bit before we start kind of, you know.
okay, that's fine.
You know, I think I'm gonna shock you. I'm not gonna recommend this one.
Okay. It doesn't shock me. I would recommend this, but I'll let you explain why you will not recommend it first.
I don't like the way it's narrated. I felt like it was really confusing, and I felt like it was really like slow, and it seemed like not a lot was really happening. Like really,
Sure.
like I feel like you could almost break down like the main parts of this book into like a one paragraph.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. It
And
could
I'm
have
gonna be
been
honest
far
with you,
shorter.
I don't remember almost any of the kids' names
No.
at all.
I remember Ralph and Piggy and Jack.
Yeah,
That's it.
but there's way more people than that.
Oh yeah, there's like
Way.
there's like there's a ton of them. I don't ever actually you never really know how many there are because they never give you a number.
Well, and don't they even talk about that the boys themselves don't even know how many there are.
Yes. Yeah, they do. So I would recommend this if you're a fan of like classic books. Like you know, like you said, this is a classic. Lord of the Flies is a classic. I would say if you've seen the movie, don't bother with the book because
Wait, there's a movie?
there is a movie. You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah,
I
there
had
is a
no
movie.
idea.
I've only seen bits and pieces of the movie. Maybe this would be a good one for us to get the movie too, and we'll do a side-by-side comparison.
That is a good point. We haven't done one of those in a hot minute.
No. And this is another kind of classic, you know, like The Shining was, so
Right.
it might be a good idea to
I know,
compare
too, but
'em.
then like I talked to people about the movie and they're like, the movie's great, and I was like, is it though? Is it?
Yeah. I feel like that movie though is just a cult classic, so
Never mind. We can't talk about The Shining right now.
No.
Never mind. We
No.
can't. We can't.
yeah.
We can't.
We won't go off on a tangent on that yet. So like I said, I would recommend this if you are into like classics. Like if you like, you know, older style books. This is also the writer is British, so it is much different than like an American style writing. I think that does play a role in the writing
That's
style.
Which usually
So-
I don't have an issue with though.
No, and I think it stands out in this. But again, this book is from like the 50s, so this is old school.
Right, but I mean like Starship Troopers is old too.
Yes, yeah, and you're absolutely right. I would say that I don't think that William Golding himself does this book complete justice in his narration. I think
That's like one of my main issues that I have is that he doesn't add anything. He
No.
only subtracts.
and I
that's-
think you're right.
And that's like one of the biggest issues I had, because like to me, I found it like the whole experience rather boring.
Right. For something that's actually it's a very, very, very good concept.
It is a very good concept, and I like the beginning how he kind of tells you like what he was setting out to do while writing this.
Exactly. And I was
And
going to get into that.
Really
yeah,
appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
right. And
But-
I do too, but I think that could have been good as a standalone, and then you get into the narration with
Right,
the
and then like
narrator.
now giving it to Bronson Pinchot reading Lord of the Flies, and I'm like, ooh, I'm so in,
Right. Exactly.
because his just no inflection, like just kind of reading it to you, it was like lulling me to sleep in a book that you really can't be missing details.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with that. I do agree with that. It's a difficult listen. I would not recommend this for anyone starting out. This is a hard listen. It's hard to follow. It's hard to stay engaged for that reason because William Golding's voice is a little bit monotone. Like I said, if you like when your grandpa tells you stories, maybe you'll like this because it's like having a really unexciting grandpa though.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty on the fence about this one. I don't want to say that I absolutely don't recommend it, but I definitely, if you have to pay for it, definitely don't do that for sure.
Yeah, I don't think so. So you ready to go past the spoilers?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and so there you go. You got our recommendations there. So if you want to listen to it, pause this now, go listen to it, and come back. And now we're gonna talk about it. So spoilers are off. 3, 2, 1, go.
So the story is told like kind of like I feel like somebody like kind of like looking over their shoulders on what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Right.
really from one person's perspective. I mean, certain parts of it are.
It's definitely like in the third person.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
like
mean, the end is kind of first person, a little bit of it.
a little bit of it. Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, it's kind of like you're getting like a bird's eye view of what's happening. And as we said, like this book is, I think it's set like in the 50s, or like, is it in the? It's like wartime, right? Like World War II
Yeah,
time.
so it might have been like right during World War II time because it says that's why they were being evacuated is because of the war. So I'm
But that's
assuming
almost
probably World War
not
II.
even relevant.
Yeah, it doesn't really play a role in what happens amongst where they are. Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, we kind of like they crash land, and we kind of get like introduced to like the two main characters. It's like Piggy and oh god,
Ralph.
what's the Ralph? Ralph, that's his name. That's right. And we kind of get introduced to them, and they find like this big old conch, like right away, that Piggy like latches onto, and it's kind of like whoever has the conch is supposed to be the person that's talking.
Yeah,
But
they
I-
basically. So we should also establish real quick that these kids are young. They are kids.
Like
They're
12,
like
right?
Yeah, so once all the boys are together, they pretty much assume that their ages range between 6 and 12 as the oldest.
Right, because
So,
there's like a group of kids they call the Littlins.
yeah. And the biggins, yeah.
The
Little
biggins.
uns and biggins. But that's like the age range we're talking. So these are children, like young children. So you have to keep all of that in mind while you're listening to this story that like these decisions and stuff are being made as children would make them, not adults.
So like they kind of like have an assembly, and Ralph gets elected like their leader, and he kind of like sets out some guidelines, and then it kind of cuts forward, right, to like a little bit later, and like almost immediately it seems like nobody's listening to what's supposed to be happening, nobody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, and everybody's just obsessed with hunting.
Yeah, because the other big main character is Jack, and Jack was the leader of like the choir. So he
Right.
automatically assumes he should have been the leader. So right away you get tension between Ralph and Jack. And Jack says, "Fine, if I can't be the leader, I want to be the leader of the hunters, and we will be the hunters, him and his choir."
Right.
And yeah, Jack tried to like set out very straightforward guidelines. We need to build some shelters and we need to build a signal fire. Those were like his only rules. And they immediately just fuck all that up. Like they
And-
immediately just screw it up.
And dude, like the stuff with Piggy like hurt my heart. How like they are just immediately mean to him because he's overweight.
Yeah. It like nobody even knows like yeah, at the very first assembly Piggy's like, I think whoever has the conch should be the only one to talk, and Jack's like, "Shut up, fatty."
Yeah,
It's like,
dude, that's what
whoa.
that's just like what they call him. They're just like, shut up, fatty.
Yeah, yeah, and he screws up because that's why they call him Piggy because he says that's what he was called back at school. So
Yeah, well,
and
he tells that to Ralph, right?
he tells Ralph in hopes that Ralph will keep his secret, and Ralph immediately just starts laughing at him and
Yeah.
also starts calling him Piggy. So kind of a little bit, basically like you said, nothing happens really. They're trying to build shelters and they get a signal fire going and they they pretty much almost burn the whole island down almost immediately because they're kids. And then the goal is to keep a fire going all the time. So there's always smoke in case somebody goes by and, a ship goes by, they'll see the smoke and come rescue them. Well, Jack is, like you said, obsessed with hunting. That's all he wants to do because there's pigs on the island. And he takes all of his hunters and he goes hunting and they let the fire go out.
Right, and that's like one of the biggest things in the beginning is like they let the fire go out and there's a ship on the horizon.
Right.
And like pretty much right there's like a big split, I feel like, in the boys.
Yeah,
it's
because
like, there's people who's on Jack's side and there's people who's on Ralph's side.
Right. Because Jack is saying, well, we have to hunt because we have to eat. But Ralph is like, no, we have to keep the fire going so we can be rescued.
Right.
And all Jack wants to do is hunt. It's really kind of disturbing, actually.
But I mean, it makes sense. Like, these children aren't going to do the things like that make logical sense in this scenario if they don't want to do them.
Right. It is kind of impressive though, because they are able to sneak up like on boars and kill them. Like, they get good at it. It's kind of creepy.
It is super creepy, dude. Like, how immediately they like devolve into like freaking, they're just savages, and even Ralph starts to call them savages.
Right. Yeah. So you have this little bit of a back and forth, and eventually what kind of happens is Jack says, fine, I'm not listening to you anymore, Ralph. I'm going my own way and we're creating our own tribe. So you only get like 4 or 5 people that stay with Ralph and a bunch of little kids, the little ones. Because they don't really have a clue what's going on. But basically though, that's exactly it. Like, Ralph is like, no, they're just savages. Like, that's, we're supposed to be British. We're supposed to be refined, and they're savages. So, oh yeah, and the little ones keep talking about like a monster on the island.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't even understand why that's in the book.
So, well, I actually kind of liked it because I thought it was kind of a nice little misdirection, because obviously if you had a bunch of little kids in that scenario, they would be inevitably monster stories would come up. And so what actually happens is we get this little snippet of I'm assuming it's like another plane gets shot down, right? Or is it when their plane got shot down?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, honestly.
Is that where the guy who parachuted down and gets stuck in the trees came from? Is it from their plane that gets shot down?
I think it's supposed to be from their plane.
That is from their plane. Yeah, so we get this little clip of when they get shot down, their pilot jumps out and he parachutes down, and he's already dead though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he gets tangled up in the trees, and it like the parachute is holding him up in the trees just right so that like I picture his like legs are kind of on the ground, and when the wind kind of dies down, it relaxes him down to the ground where he's almost face down. And then when the wind picks up and moves the tree, it like picks his body up in the ropes. So he's like facing upwards,
Mm-hmm.
And well, the boys stumble across this because he's been there for like weeks. So he's like all rotting and dead, obviously. And he's like a partial skeleton. And so they see him, rise up when they show up, and it scares the living shit out of them. They assume he is like the monster that they're all talking about. That's when I feel like the real big divide happens, because that's when, Ralph's like, we have to get out of here. There's a real monster on this island. And Jack's like, we'll kill it.
Yeah.
Which leads into a really terrible thing later on. But
yeah. It's awful. I mean, you almost want to talk about that now?
Yeah, because you know what? There's not a whole lot in between. I mean, really.
So, freaking Jack ends up like taking most of the tribe away, but they need Piggy's glasses to start a fire, because that's the only way they know how to start them is with Piggy's glasses. And so they
yeah.
they raid Ralph and Piggy and they take his glasses. And Ralph's like,
By
well, we have to go back and get Piggy's glasses because he can't see.
By the way, I felt so bad at that part because, you got Ralph and his it's like Ralph and Piggy and the twins. It's like the only four of them
Yeah.
left. And so you get Jack and like three others come to raid them at night, and they get in their shelter and they start scrabbling, they start fighting. It's pitch black, nobody can see anything. And we get it from Ralph's perspective that he gets like hit in the face, so he rolls over on top of whoever hit him and he starts beating the shit out of him, and then they knee him in the balls and he falls off, and then the whole shelter falls down, and then there's a big scramble and they all leave. Well, come to find out it was one of the twins that he was beating the shit out of
Yeah.
in the dark. I was like, oh, that's so bad.
Yeah, this is pretty bad.
They were just beating each other up because they couldn't see anything. So I just felt, I did feel for them at times. I was like, oh my God, this is just horrible.
No, I mean, you feel for the kids. Like, I don't know how you can't. Like, especially Piggy. It's just like, oh my God. He brings up sensible things, and they're like, shut your mouth, fat boy.
Yeah, no kidding. Even Ralph in the beginning
Yeah.
doesn't want to listen to Piggy, even though he's like the most sensible out of all of them.
Well, he's like extremely intelligent as far as I understand.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
later on, Ralph kind of is regretting not listening to Piggy more because he was kind of the, level-headed one. So yeah, go ahead. So they raid them and they take Piggy's glasses back.
Right, and so they have to like lead like a sneak mission to try and get Piggy's glasses back, and Piggy can't see, so he's like holding on to Ralph to follow him. Like, oh, I mean, that whole part is just rough.
So is that before Simon sees the no. We're skipping a part. So Simon, one of the boys that was on Ralph's side, sees the parachute guy, remember? And comes running out of the woods in the dark. Is that the part you're thinking of?
I mean, honest with you, I don't really remember that.
So, okay, so what ends up happening is shortly after Jack splits off, remember, they have a feast, and they tell Ralph and those guys and Piggy and everybody to come to the feast. So they all go there, and Jack's crew is freaking crazy, and like after they kill a pig, they're always like, kill the pig, spill his blood, doing
a little chant.
They do their chant and they do their dance. Doing that, and Simon, I'm pretty sure that's his name, had gone up the mountain and had seen the paratrooper guy dead. But he stood there long enough to realize what it was. That's where the name, the Lord of the Flies, comes from, because the dude is covered in flies. So Simon goes running back down to the beach to find everyone, to tell them that there's a dead man on the mountain. That's what it is. And they're all freaking bloodlusting crazy on the beach with their wooden spears and stuff when Simon comes running out. That basically Jack is like, that's the monster, and they jump on him and they freaking kill the shit out of him.
Yeah, they do. You're right.
Yeah, remember Jack jumps on him with his knife and starts stabbing him, and the kids start stabbing him with freaking spears. They murder him. They murder one of the other kids because they're all just insane.
Well, didn't they kind of allude to that, like, because the first kid to mention the monster had like a weird patch of skin on his face, so it was really noticeable.
Yeah.
But Ralph starts to realize after that first day, he never saw that kid again.
Right, that kid disappeared. Yeah.
And so he thinks that Jack killed him before then. I mean, they never really like say yes or no if that's what happened, but that's like kind of what they allude to.
Yeah, because right from the beginning, Jack has I'm assuming it's some kind of like Bowie knife, however he got that, and he's constantly just wanting to stab stuff with it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's basically feral.
Yeah, it's insane. So then afterwards, that's when so they kill Simon, and that's when really, though, they get their real divide, because Ralph is like, oh my God, like, are you guys kidding me? We just did that? Like, or you guys did, because Ralph was in the circle, but he didn't take part. And then that's when they have their true split. That's when they go to get their to get Piggy's glasses back. After a couple other things happen. They go to get Piggy's glasses back, and like you're talking about, Jack had moved up into like a cave up in the hills on the island, whereas before they were all staying down by like the beach. And do you want to describe this part? You want to let me do it? It's pretty
You
intense.
could do it.
Okay. So Jack's basically everybody who went with Jack, which is most of them, but there's quite a few of them that are like insane. I think the other kid who's standing guard, his name is Robert. He's like up above everybody, and he shows Ralph that they set up like this rock with like a lever underneath it using like a branch, so that if he steps on it, it'll push this rock down into the pathway if somebody were to try to come in their cave. Well, when they come up, when Piggy's hanging on to Ralph, and they go up there to say, hey, you guys need to give Piggy his glasses back. Basically, Jack and Ralph start fighting. Like, they start trying to stab each other with these freaking sticks. It's insane.
Well, but Piggy's giving like a speech. He's what is he saying? He's like what's better, like true savagery or like actually taking care of each other? What's better, like killing pigs or actually making sure everybody has enough food? He's like actually like trying to like tug at their heartstrings during this.
Yeah. And
he's holding on to the conch while this is all happening.
That's right.
Too.
Yeah, he has the conch, which because through the whole book, the conch was like the symbol of like, that was kind of their symbol of unity, because it was like the first thing they found, and it's really cool looking, and they could blow on it for like a horn to bring their meetings together.
But to me, it was like a symbol of their humanity almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. So during Piggy's speech, though, Jack and Ralph start fighting, and Robert, the one guy up top, gets so excited because everybody's like cheering him on. They do the whole schoolyard thing. They circle up and they let him fight. That Robert kid gets so excited that he steps on the freaking lever and shoves the rock off down towards where the whole assembly is. Well, Piggy doesn't have his glasses on. He can't see. Everybody else gets out of the way, but this rock comes rolling down and smashes into Piggy like in the chest.
God, dude, it just annihilates Piggy.
Yeah, it sends him flying backwards off the cliff that they're now on.
Dude.
He falls like 40 feet to the rocks down below.
It is so brutal.
Yeah. It literally says he hits the rocks and stuff comes out of his head. So yeah. That's how he describes it.
Oh, it's so bad.
And then they said they all look down and they see him for like a second, and then the wave washes up, and then he's gone. Pulls him out to the water, and he's gone.
Oof.
So, and then basically from that point, because Ralph then is like, telling Jack, you're insane. But now Ralph's pretty much on his own because the twins are forced to join Jack. So Jack basically says, we're going to kill you. We're going to kill you. And Ralph finds out from the twins later on, just a little bit later on, that they're planning the next day to hunt Ralph down. Like, they're going to sweep the whole island until they find him and kill him. That's their whole goal. And I was like, oh my God, this is insanity.
Yeah, and the part where Ralph talks to the twins, and he's hiding, and then Ralph hears the twins getting interrogated, basically where he was hiding at.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they immediately sell him out.
Well, I mean, I feel like they were tortured.
Oh, I feel like so too. Yeah, because they even talk about that when Ralph shows up that one time, and that's when that Robert kid's like, yeah, he just got done with so and so, had him all strung up, and he's basically torturing kids.
Yeah. It dissolves into just pure savagery really fast.
Which the scariest part is, I feel like, is very accurate to what would happen, even if it were all adults. This is accurate to pretty much what would happen. And then, so to basically wrap up the book, though, Jack's group of hunters start sweeping the island hunting for Ralph, and Ralph he's just running for his life. He gets stuck with a freaking spear. He freaking sticks some other kid with a spear, and he's running for his life, and he ends up running around the island, and he falls back down onto the beach, and there's a dude standing over him
Yeah.
in like a captain's outfit, which I actually loved that part.
Yeah, and even the captain's like, I really thought you boys would have done better than you did.
Yeah. Dude, I love that part. I did love the ending. I actually really liked it.
Yeah, it is a good book. It's just, I don't know, it's just a little bit confusing.
It is confusing, and I agree that it could have been told if you had like a really good narrator tell it. It could have been even more interesting. And I would like to see. I haven't researched it yet, but I'd be curious if there is an abridged version where they kind of cut all the nonsense out and they shorten it down to like the bare bones. Because realistically, this whole story could be told in about 3 hours and still be really good.
Mm-hmm.
But there are parts of it that I really did like, and the ending is one of them because that captain's standing there, and he's like, oh, aren't you boys all British? I thought you guys would have done better than this, because he's like, guys look like savages. So all the boys end up leaving on the ship, and then that's it. That's the end of the book.
Yeah,
you don't hear what happens with them. All I know is those kids they'd be hard pressed to not go straight into a mental institution and stay there.
Yeah, especially like Jack killed a bunch of people.
Yeah. And then
yeah,
I did like too that after the story ends, you get William Golding comes back in again and talks about, the book just really shortly. He basically said, I wrote this book. This is my intent when I wrote this book. He said, but whatever you get out of the book is for you.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you'll hear a lot of things that other people assume it is, but I didn't write it with any specific intent of giving you, oh, this represents socialism in Russia. Like he didn't. He specifically says, no matter what anybody else says, I didn't write it with any of those intentions, and I loved that.
Yeah.
Because how many things nowadays do you get where you hear that? Like, oh, well, clearly, freaking Tolkien was talking about, the uprisings in the Middle East, all the way back in his time. He knew it was coming. It's like, what?
Yeah.
No. And without, Tolkien's dead, so you can't ask him. But I love that William Golding put his stamp on it and said, I wasn't trying to say anything by this book. Nothing.
Well, I mean, I think he even says in the beginning, like, his whole intent was just to, like, truly portray, like, how kids would behave on their own.
Right.
Like, not like a fantasized way, like, just how true, like, normal British kids would behave if they were left alone for long enough.
Right. And I like, too, how he said, I did like that in the beginning. He's like, I had this idea of writing a book with kids on an island, and I told my wife, and she said, that sounds like a good idea. You should write it. So I wrote it.
Yeah.
He's actually kind of funny.
He is kind of funny. I mean, he sounds like a really cool guy. Is he still
probably,
alive?
That's a great question. I doubt it, since, in the 50s.
He died in 1993. He died before I was even born.
Oh. But there is some pretty good takeaways from this, and kind of like we said, there's even just looking at these couple things on Audible even, which is really weird. There's like a summary and analysis of this book. There's cliff notes on Audible for this book. Like, it's insane how much has sprung up around this book and trying to potentially make something out of it that it's not. I just think at its core, the idea of the story is actually is a really cool idea, and the way he told it, even though it gets kind of muddied with the weird details he puts in, is still a pretty good, showing their slow progression from immediately getting there and having some disarray to just total chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a classic for a reason, and there's probably a reason a lot of people read it in school.
Right.
Even though I wasn't one of them.
I was not either.
So, I mean, do you have anything else you want to say about it?
No, I mean, this was it was an interesting one for me. I'm glad we did choose this one to listen to because it's a very interesting book, and like I said, I've seen bits and pieces of the movie. I've never actually seen the whole movie start to finish. So um to actually get to listen to it, even though it might have been a little drab and boring, I was like, there was several parts where I was like, what? Seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, it did a pretty good job of that, even if a lot of it does get lost kind of in the details and in the way he tells it.
Yep. I agree.
So, but no, I think I'm good with that. I think, like we said, you got our recommendations. This is, I would say for sure, steer clear of this if you listen to audiobooks like while you do other stuff, because you won't be able to keep up. Like, you'll miss big parts, you'll miss important stuff because it does get muddy in the details. So
It does. It does get a little muddy.
But yeah, so with that, if you guys thought we did a good job, email us, let us know. If you thought we did a terrible job, email us, let us know.
Yeah. Just give us feedback.
What do you think we're gonna do next time?
I think I want to do caffeine next.
Okay, that's good. I started to listen to it just a little bit, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, Caffeine is an Audible original. So we will be checking that out. You got a couple more days. You could pick that up for free if you'd like.
Well, you have almost a week.
About a week, yeah. It should be available till the 6th of
Literally
March.
a week. Oh, and I want to apologize to everybody that it took so long for this episode to come out. It's mostly my fault.
Well, no, that's not true. We were both just I had some technical issues.
I guess that's right, huh?
Yeah, I hadn't
forgot
quite
about
finished the book on time, so that's it. We definitely dropped the ball though, and hopefully it won't happen again. We're trying to stick to about a week between episodes, and
Right. Yeah. That's.
I definitely started feeling it too. I was like, oh man, I really want to do a podcast.
And I know there's probably like one person that's like, "Where's the Knights of Pages Library podcast?" Table pound. But like to me, that's too many people. Like I don't want people waiting on it.
Yeah. No, and if we tried to say once a week, then I'd like to stick to that too. So
Right. I mean, if you say something, you got to do it.
yeah, we're not British, but we're not savages. So.
We're knights, honor bound.
Very true.
So yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. We hope to catch you guys in the next one.